On NewsCompass tonight, the county's preparedness level for COVID-19 pandemic is key in the next phase in the fight against the pandemic. President Uhuru Kenyatta last week told the governors that county's capacity will determine whether to reopen the economy or not ahead of July 6 end date for the current curfew nationwide partial lockdown in the country. The Council of Governors chairperson and Kakamega County Governor Wycliffe Oparanya, however, said 35 counties were yet to meet the required number of isolation beds. As Kenyans eagerly await and anticipate President Uhuru Kenyatta's address, who will check on the public discipline that is set to underpin the next cycle in the fight against COVID-19 pandemic. And as the government depends on public discipline, is everyone's common sense the same? And as the government plans to reopen the economy, what measures is it putting in place to avoid a second wave of the pandemic? To discuss that, I'm joined by the Tana River County Governor, the Honorable Major Retired Dr. Dado Godana. Good evening.
Good evening.
Your time is appreciated.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for coming. And let's start on this, of course, a lot to talk about. The floods, drought, the locust, of course, which is not only a Kenyan problem, but equally, according to the UN, is equally going to be having enormous effect on the food chain across the African continent. But starting off, you alongside 46 other governors hold the key in the reopening of the Kenyan economy. Do you think that the 47 devolved units are prepared, including the county that you govern, Tana River County?
Of course, going by the sentiments of the chair of the Council of Governors, it is very true that quite a number of counties have not met the requirements for us to go by probably the requirement that we open the economy. But I want to believe that all counties are trying their best to meet those requirements. Today we've seen Kwale County has met the requirement, and every other county is trying its best to upscale the level of preparedness so that then the economy can be opened. Looking at the situation, it is very true also that counties hold the key to that. Looking at the spread of the disease, and also that opening the economy will require that counties be able to meet or to handle patients at that level. It is therefore critical that counties get to that level of preparedness. But I want to believe also that we have not taken off at the same time as counties in terms of development, in terms of infrastructure, in terms of other things. So there are those that are ahead of others, others are a bit slow in meeting those requirements. Myself, or Tana as an example, I can say belongs to those counties that are a bit left behind for many years. And so for us to be able to have
marginalization is what
talking about marginalization. So looking at infrastructure levels, even today, in terms of equitable share distribution, it is obvious that we may not be able to go the pace of other counties.
All right.
But we are doing the best so far.
Well, now in mentioning that, you have talked about the COG chairperson, Wycliffe Oparanya, who has talked about the preparedness level, and he was very categorical and clear. He said that of the required 30,500 units bed capacity, and I'm sure that's what he talked about with the president when you met him at State House last month.
Yes.
Only 6,898 bed and isolation facilities are ready. Of the 47 counties, only 12 have met the requirements, meaning 35 counties still are not prepared.
Yes.
It talks a lot about what appears to be a bleak picture, isn't it, if we are to reopen our economy?
Very true, and that is what I'm talking about, that there are those counties that may not be able to move as fast as people expect because of issues of the equitable share. Others have been seriously affected by pending bills. Others are simply left behind for a long time. So for some of these counties to be able to move as fast as it is expected, to be able to deploy 300 beds, to be able to have those facilities for those beds to fit in, and also to be able to have the kind of equipments that are required in all these facilities may not be that easy. Talking about ventilators, oxygen concentrations, the rest of the things may not be easy. Isolation facilities is going to be a bit of a challenge, but it's not that counties are not doing it.
Okay.
We are all doing it, and we believe that the figures that have been given that gave the statistic of 300 bed capacity are projections. They may not necessarily be actual. Of course, it was said that the reasoning is at least to have that way. But there are those that need more. There are those that need less. But standard, at least each county should have 300.
Okay.
And people are doing it in that small way, in the pace that counties can be able to afford. All
right. And you, of course, have mentioned the counties scrambling now to set up the isolation, at least to meet the requirement minimum.
Yes.
In under 96 hours' time, the president will be addressing the nation on the way forward.
Yes.
If you are his advisor.
Yes.
Will you advise him to reopen the economy or not?
I think it is necessary that we do it, but in a manner that is gradual. Maybe opening it up at once may not be very advisable, but looking at the level of preparedness of counties, from county to county, sector to sector, which one comes first, which one follows, I think we should start opening up gradually, not fully, based on the level of preparedness of counties. Yes.
And in terms of then your county, of course, bordering other counties that were partially locked down by the government. I'm talking about the coastal counties, which are considered hotspot by the government.
Yes.
Now, despite mentioning some of the problems, of the teething problems it faced, of course, from marginalization, then to the new system of governance, and now this problem, the pandemic, more or less, again, piling more pressure on your county administration. I mean, what are the homemade solutions you're putting in place as the county government of Tana River to avoid the incoming or the inflow of the virus from the neighboring counties considered as hotspot by the government?
We have actually tried. We have done well right from the onset of things. We were able to set up screening points across the county along border posts with other counties. For example, we had the screening point at Kilifi, which helped in controlling movement of people from Mombasa, Kilifi, Kwale. You are aware that most of the people from Tana live across the entire coast region. We have people in Kwale, there are those who live in Mombasa, there are those who live in Kilifi, others in Lamu, others in Taita, a few of them, and others in Garissa. So we took first action to try and ensure that we minimize first the movement of people in and out. I think we were among the first counties to impose
more or less
of ban on movement in and out of people of the county. And then we put in now the screening points to ensure that people coming in, coming out can be screened, and then they can, and then we register vehicles and people whether they're coming or going out. You're also aware that we banned even Miraa. Miraa was banned in Kwale. Actually,
in Mandera County.
In Mandera County, in Kilifi,
County.
in Wajir County, just to try and ensure that there is control. We have not lifted those bans. But in terms of the rest of the preparedness levels, we already have 94 beds for us. We have the isolation ward, we have the quarantine facilities, and now we have procured 100 beds. In our own way, we have 94 beds.
Plus 100.
Plus 100. That's 94. That's almost 200 beds. We also have 2 ventilators. We have 2 oxygen concentration. We have in that isolation ward, we have 7 beds. We are renovating some of the facilities in the sub-counties, 3 of them. We've put in there 4.5 million to be able now to have these extra beds fit in, because it is not possible for all of them to fit in the whole hospital. The referral facility is small as compared to others. So the capacity is more of being built in the other sub-county facilities to be able now to accommodate that. We have received the 33 million, which has been set aside for COVID-19 purely. Then we have also, we are doing our own face masks.
Local production?
Local production within the county.
Free of charge?
Free of charge. We process them, and we have actually launched, we have distributed close to 12,000 face masks so far, and the production is still going on. We also have a platform. One of us came up with a platform, we call it Sensitize Kenya platform. This platform, which we intend to pilot very soon, is meant to actually make it easy for sensitization, enforcement, and actually bring the entire public to be part of the process of interventions. All government institutions, all businesses, the kinyozis, the saloons, all those mambamboga, to be able to have a certificate that makes it easy for the community health workers and the enforcement officers, just by use of a phone and through the agreement, because the idea is to have them to agree.
There must be a consent.
Yeah, there must be a consent. And the consent comes out of the realization that it is all of us in this thing. And so it binds the business person or that premise, the owner of the premise, to now the platform. To the extent that he's required, or one is required, to comply with social distancing, washing of hands, and all those measures. So the moment now he agrees through, of course, training, then he signs an agreement, and the details of that facility are taken. So that then a certificate is generated. You hear the CS, COVID-free certificate. This is COVID compliance certificate, such that when now the enforcement officers and the healthcare workers are moving around, it's just by the use of phone to scan and to know that the person of this facility is COVID compliant. That makes it easy for all of us to be part of the enforcement of the measures of COVID-19.
That must be a good progress then if the other counties also adopt that. I mean, it's very positive to hear that from you, the county boss, of course, not in the media, and that needs to get the attention of the country. However, let's now proceed to the other important aspect, because Tana River County is not only dotted by the problem of COVID-19, which is a global phenomenon, not only a Kenyan problem for that matter, but there are people who are concerned about flooding. Of course, now displaced from their homes, and they feel that the national government and the county government's intervention in helping them is inadequate. Is the county government's response, your administration, adequately, or is the attention adequate in responding to the needs of the people who have been affected or displaced by floods?
I would say, I would agree that the support given to the people is not very adequate. And because of the magnitude of the flood that has come in this time, different from that of 2018, 2019, this one of 2020 is a bit severe than the previous one. And this one is across now the county. That's why I'm talking about the magnitude of the effect of the floods. Is severe than before. Again, looking at the number of the displaced people, and across the county, the number is close to 70 70,000 households, 75,000 households across the county. And we're talking about IDPs here. Traditionally, what we've seen over a period of time, the interventions that come into the flood victims is normally in terms of food and non-food items, basic household items. But when you are talking about IDPs, the first thing that is critical is shelter. The other thing is water, and then sanitation. These are primary. Food can come at any level, beginning up to end. When you look at the interventions that so far have happened, and people are still have been moving from the lower to the higher, you realize the volume of, let's say, shelter to support them to stay where they are moving to is very minimal. Again, although we have as a county have enough water bowsers to be able to supply, to track water to all these places, but in terms of water storage facilities, enough to be able to cater for the people in those camps is actually not yet to the required levels. We have tried in terms of food distribution, relief food distribution. We have our resource mobilization team, which addresses both COVID-19, flood, and locust. There's something we have not talked about, and that is seawater intrusion and the collapsing of walls at Kipini. These are other problems. The people of the Delta, apart from the displacements out of the flood, but their area is already affected by seawater. That means production will be affected. And so looking at the trend and looking at the situation as is now, and the way the flood has come, it has come in phases. First wave, second wave, third wave, fourth wave. And every time it comes, as the farmers try to plant their crops, their crop is swept.
The plantation is washed away.
Yeah, they washed away 4 times. So now they don't have seeds. They don't have seeds now. And if, because of the waves, then it means they are planting late. So the earliest we can expect to have harvest is probably August. Late, maybe 15th towards the end of the month. So that means relief effort have to continue
until that time.
In
about 1.5 months.
1.5 months time. So it is like we are still struggling on having to sustain them in the IDP camps. So the challenge is big, very big. And when I talk of sanitation, I want you to imagine something. I know as a Kenyan, you know Garissa very well, and you know Mororo. If Mororo is submerged, it is submerging toilets, it is submerging so many other facilities, and that water is flowing downstream. So the possibility of an outbreak of cholera is one very big threat that we have to look at. And coming with, again, COVID-19, looking at measures like social distancing, washing of hands, putting on masks, and all those measures of within an IDP camp. I have worked in IDP camps before. If then other parties don't come in a big way to support the humanitarian effort in Tana, in those areas that I've talked about, then we could be headed for a triple kind of a situation, tragedy.
And in mentioning that, of course, when that becomes untenable in such situations, especially when you have in mind Kakuma or Dadaab or even the Cox's Bazar in Bangladesh, where Myanmar, from, of course, Bangladesh, who are fleeing, which is the biggest refugee camp today in the world as we speak. Now, you seem to be having also a concern in terms of the national government's intervention, and we recently saw a delegation led by CSU General Malwa coming to the county. And you said, and I quote you, "We have requested for 4 billion Kenyan shillings to enable us avert the perennial problem but the government has not been able to sort us out. But when COVID-19 came recently, the state poured billions of shillings into a mysterious thing.
Yes, it was a concern that I was raising, that COVID-19 came in the other day, affecting the rest of Kenyans. But looking at Tana, we have always been having that challenge, day in, day out. And the reaction by national government and the rest of the parties was not sort of long-term. In our view, we thought the best would have been a long-term solution, which we came up with a solution.
Okay. And did you share that
national
with the
government,
national government?
national government and the rest of parties have always been advocating for people to move higher. When we came in as administration, we realized that need, that actually people need to move higher. Because the problem is not the floods, the problem is the people. People have moved into the flooding plain for purposes of survival. Over the years, there has, because of marginalization, again, there has never been serious development of infrastructure, water infrastructure, transport infrastructure, and all those. So people have been moving to where life is, to where water is. So over a period of time, people have moved in there. Now, every time there's a flood, people react with food and blankets and other things.
Which according to you is a short-term
solution. It's a short-term solution.
Okay.
People then move back. So where was temporary was permanent. Where was permanent was temporary. People move out of the floodplain temporarily. Then they walk back to the flooding plain to stay. And we as government also have been supporting it. We go there because the people want a school. We build it inside there. We build a health center there. We build a mosque there. We build churches inside there. So we have been meant to cope with what the people want, not what is convenient for the people. So we came up with what we call the village class arrangement, moving people higher, but then deploying the necessary infrastructure, consolidate all of them in one, so that service delivery becomes easy, and then it is a long-term solution, rather than the piecemeal humanitarian approach that the government has been doing. But from the time we started doing that, we had not been able to receive much of the support that we require
from the national government.
From the national government.
And when Malwa
and
came,
we became jealous. National government, the 2018-19 flood, they put in 1 billion. But again, the 1 billion was spent in the same floodplain. This flood swept all those houses. That means 1 billion is gone. So what we were trying to say is, if the national government sees COVID-19, which is true, we agree that COVID-19 is a dangerous situation. But again, what about the flood that is always happening here? If they can afford to very quickly mobilize those billions, 4 billion, towards COVID-19, why can they again mobilize
such resources?
Remember, 1 billion is washed away. If that 1 billion could have gone towards the supporting of this initiative, we could have been talking about something different today. Because according to me, 1 billion could have done close to 3-4 clusters. Then, if again we can get a few more billions, the 4 billion I was talking about, it is possible that we can be able now to move these people fully to higher grounds. Why can't it be a national effort? That was my concern. Why is this problem of COVID a national concern? And why that one is not much or appropriately being handled as a national concern?
And in that regard, when the CS came with this delegation from the national government, were you given guarantees?
Yes. First thing, we had to convince the CS for devolution to understand exactly what this model, this solution we are providing is all about. And he accepted to come. And when he came, he really was convinced that actually the solution
lies in what you are proposing.
Lies in what we are proposing. And that's why you had him move around the whole country telling telling counties, adopt to what Tana River is trying to do. So we believe that government, national government is now convinced. It is now about time that now they act, and the best way is to get the billions.
Okay, which is more or less why we have devolution, why we have the county administrations coming up with ideas.
Exactly.
I mean, when power is devolved, resources were devolved, then idea is upon you.
Yes.
Collect your own revenues, come up with ideas.
Just the way they are saying COVID-19 relies, would rely much on how prepared.
Including you
then
and the...
such of those solutions, national government should realize that county government must be critical in developing local solutions to situations that are like
which are local.
The ones which are local.
People have more understanding in
that.
All right, let's come to another important aspect, which is the swarm of locust.
Yes.
And it's not only a Kenyan concern. Lately, the UN Food Agency, FAO, did say that the swarm of locust that has affected the Horn of Africa region is likely going to totally ravage the food security in the African continent.
Yes.
I mean, Tana River is one of the counties affected alongside other frontline frontier counties, Garissa, Wajir, Mandera, Cielo, and Marsabit.
Exactly.
I mean, what are the tailored solutions by your administration in at least preserving the food chain in the county of Tana River for people to be sustained?
Even before you talk about storage of food, currently we don't even have what to store. The food poverty level in Tana River is 64.7%. With the flooding situation, again, that one is a bit more reinforced. So we have nothing to actually put in stores for future.
Okay.
In fact, what we are trying to do now is try and put in more programs for food security, and which are also being now threatened by the local situation, because in the past few months when locusts came in, the whole of one sub-county of Tana River, the Tana North, was affected. 5 of those were affected, and before we could handle that one, then floods came in. And now that floods are almost about to go again, locusts are about to come. So we are actually threatened. We are so much worried that another inflow of a swarm of what is estimated around 100 million of them coming from Somalia. Obviously, the counties you have talked about and Tana River
are borders.
Are probably going to be the most affected. And again, in Tana River is the time when we expect bumper harvest in August, September. So it's worrying, actually. It's very worrying. As a county, we have tried to work together with the national government to try and build a bit of capacity for us to be able to deal with the locust. But you know, it's not about the capacity of the staff, it's about the chemicals that are required to deal with, to spray. It may not be possible probably just to handle them through the normal knapsack sprayers and motorized sprayers. It will require probably aerial spraying and all that. It is an expensive affair. And especially now that, Abdi, you've heard and you know that already there's a budget cut.
Budget slash.
Slash.
Of course,
already Tana has, in that slash, we've lost 500 million of the budget. From 5.8 to 5.3, 500. That is development budget. This 500 million is almost the developed budget of 5 departments out of 8. So if then we are to act, if then we are supposed to deal with all the situation we're talking about, IDP situation, local situation, COVID-19, intrusion of seawater, where do we get the money from?
Did you reach out to the relevant authorities?
We have a meeting tomorrow among the governors of the JKP to discuss this issue. And I hope anybody who has a clear understanding of this nation, and Tana being one county that is always affected by this climate situation should be able to consider. It's not just about one man, one vote. There are other factors that should determine equitable share distribution.
Okay,
which is that
a political concern.
Yeah, that's exactly.
And the governors from the ASAL areas have a concern when it comes to that.
Exactly.
But we'll come to the Commission of Revenue Allocation because it's a concern equally for the other counties. And it's still on this aspect about the swarm of locusts, and from it, then it's likely going to be affecting the county economy, as you have mentioned, in regards to the slash that you are going to be experiencing in the next financial years. Yes. But the other aspect is also in regards to what's happening in Tana River County, where the concern is that also the drought has had as much effect as the floods. I mean, in a country where we seem to be unprepared for disasters, what is the coming together point, or the point of convergence in addressing not only a Tana River problem, but equally a problem that affects, say, the county of Turkana, the county of Mandera, the county of Muranga, the county of Mombasa, and in the county of Kakamega? Where is the joint of understanding here? And as the Council of Governors, where, of course, you belong to in terms of being chaired by the Kakamega County Chair, do you discuss such issues in putting forward solutions on the table? We have been discussing some of these issues, but maybe not in a very coordinated way. But I can give an example of just Tana. The solution we have adopted us as a county came out of first the realization that these three situations pose a threat to our own growth and survival. We identified three problems that interchangeably come together. We move from floods to drought. Already, as much as we are saying the flood is subsiding and people are cropping, but in the hinterland, the drought is catching up. By the time we reach August, people are about to harvest, the drought is deeper, and the effect is felt properly, and you have movement of cattle down to the flooding plain where we have crops, and then there's an eruption of clashes. So we have those three: floods, drought, and clashes. So the movement of people to the higher ground is one. But in terms of now addressing issues of drought, we learned from experience. From the last drought, we did calculate, and we realized that the county government spent 850 million on water tracking only. That is for mitigation purposes? For mitigation purposes, mitigating drought. It came together with Rift Valley fever, you remember? Yeah, very well. It came together with loss of livestock, so many of them. So when we came in, immediately we said, one of the things we need to do is to procure water bowsers to be able to track water to the hinterland. But again, intensify on surface water harvesting programs. And we did, we combined efforts there with NDMA, the county government, and now with national government, to do dams, to do backyard yards for small storages, and we have also the normal ponds. So we have a double or a twin kind of program on surface water harvesting, such that the water is available, first of all, harvested, but you have also the capacity to track water to the hinterland. That reduces the impact of the drought. And the fact that you have the water boosters, of course, it makes it cheaper rather than hiring of water boosters from across the county or elsewhere to be able to track water. So I think we need to, as counties, engage more and develop more of these solutions, surface water harvesting solutions, to be able to mitigate on drought. Look at it like this way, Abdi. The other day when there was a downpour of rain, the whole country was crying.
oh, this road has been damaged, this one has been, the bridge has been carried away, all those. That means it is not really true to say that there's scarcity of water. No, we have not done much on surface water harvesting.
All right, which is very key. Now, let's shift our attention to another important matter, which is what you hinted at at some point in your statement. That is the Commission of Revenue Allocation, where some counties have been affected, including US and the other counties that will experience a slash in their budget in the ongoing financial year 2020-2021.
Yes.
What is the modality here in terms of the affected counties, being given sufficient explanation as to why these cuts are there? Is it because of COVID-19, or is it because of the audited accounts of the previous financial year of 2019-2020?
I don't think it is based on audited accounts. Neither do I cannot imagine that is because of COVID-19. Because if it was about COVID-19, the best would have been to upscale the allocations to counties.
Okay.
Now that
slashing.
Now that it is becoming clear that counties are key in the control of the spread of COVID-19, then the effort should have been to strengthen the capacity of counties, not to slash money. But I think there's a bit of pressure from theorists, I think the very unfair theorists, to believe that the only formula that works with equitable allocation of resources is one man, one vote.
Okay.
There is no consideration of other factors.
What are some of the factors you think?
Some of the factors is one, marginalization.
Okay.
And this marginalization must be looked into very, very properly. My county is just next to Kilifi. I'm just next to Lamu. I'm next to Kitui. I'm next to Garissa. And when I look at the road network or the transport infrastructure network in Kilifi, and probably what is going on in Lamu, and I go to Kitui and compare with myself in Tana, I really get surprised. Which is this eye that can be able to see a need in Kilifi and see it in Lamu and see it in Kitui that fails to see Tana? What is the disconnect? Then the same. Garissa is there. Garissa is opening up. Next is Wajir. If you ask the governor for Wajir, he sees things happening in Garissa. But the question is, which is this eye of government that sees Garissa, it sees Meru, it doesn't see Wajir? So
you think there's an unfair?
I think we are not thinking together in this country. And it is something that is known, because that is what drove us to devolution. It is because of marginalization. It is because people are saying, no, this system cannot work anymore.
Okay.
Now we are there. And again, we are thinking.
We are backtracking backward, more or less.
Yes, more or less. So that can be one of the criteria. The other one is poverty indices. I've just told you that the food poverty index in Tana is 64.7. What national government says and other partners across the world, Tana is a food basket. We're just talking here about taking food to Tana. We're taking food.
Yet it's tipped to be the epicenter of food provision.
Of food production.
Okay.
Yeah? So we're saying it's 64.7%. In 2007, 2008, the poverty index was said to be 72% poverty, contributing 0.4% of national poverty. One county generating that level of poverty to the country is a concern.
Okay.
The person who took the statistics to determine these indices, I don't know what the indices were meant for.
Okay.
So if then we are talking about 72% poverty, now it is about 76.9%
Okay.
poor.
So which is
And food poverty of 64.7.
an increase of 4%.
An increase of 4%. And then you are saying the solution is to slash. How does that county develop?
Meaning the World Bank report on the index in terms of the county poverty level was not considered by
It was not considered.
Okay, so
There's
do you
no
read political
consideration.
malice in it?
I'm not looking at political malice. I think the people who are looking at it are stingy. They are still fixed to a certain way of thinking that is not wholesome.
Okay.
If they are to look at the whole country, looking at those indices I'm talking about, looking at potentials in counties, then the fairest thing to do over and above equalization fund, which we've never been able to enjoy as counties, is not to take away the 500 million development budget.
So in other words, even international reports are not considered in terms
Nothing.
of the counties that have been
No one,
marginalized,
I don't
of course,
think they have.
for so long.
They just went for one vote, one
man, one vote,
one man, one
shilling.
vote, 1 shilling.
Okay, and there were some who hold 1 man, 1 vote, 1 kilometer.
Yeah, 1 kilometer.
Holding that Kenya is equally made up by its sovereign land mass, which determines the sovereignty of any country. Now, let's come and finish up on this note, which is equally very important, and this regards, of course, accountability issues, since you are the top state official CEO of the county and mandated by the people to serve them for a period of 5 years.
Yes.
And in June last month, 24 counties were unable to account for 140 billion. 24 of the 47, about 23 have not been noted by the Auditor General in that report. Tana River County is included, and it had various inaccuracies in its financial statement. As a result, the Auditor General could not vouch for the accuracy of 1.3 billion records. There was also incompleteness in the expenditure of 100 million Kenya shillings, while the property of foreign travel and allowances, 13.5 million, could not be confirmed. Also, the accuracy of bank balances amounting to nearly 500 million Kenya shillings could not be confirmed. There are issues of pilferages, isn't it? Even as you're concerned about money that was slashed, you are not utilizing, according to Auditor General, what you have been accorded effectively.
It may not be that true.
Okay.
Audit reports meant to observe certain shortcomings in the processes of accountability of resources. But what they raise are just concerns. There could be probably a situation where by the time they are coming, things have not been properly done. And that forms the basis now for those observations.
Okay.
But what normally happens is a process of verification of the preliminary outcome of any audit report. And then after the verification processes are done, then the Auditor General, of course, develops a report, prepares a report that now is authentic on what was previously observed. And so all counties go through the same process. And I want to give an example of Tana, for example. And this, we are coming back to the Senate, I think, on the 7th, to now reply to some of the observations after having been given time to go and fix a few things. There were issues of, let's say, this figure was differing. Some of the statements were not properly organized. Some of the schedules were not signed. Those kind of petty things. Now, those petty things cannot inform an auditor to make a conclusive deduction.
But he raises a concern, isn't he?
He raises a concern. So I think what people should go by, when the auditor gives his preliminary observation, it does not necessarily mean that there is misuse of funds. Until when there is proper verification of each and people answer. And that's why we go answering. What about this? We say that, and they say no, but there's this. That is normal in audit.
So there's a further platform to provide evidence.
Yes,
as
to
how
provide evidence. Yes, yes.
All right.
And what I have observed personally Tana had 5 disclaimers, actually 6. Disclaimer, 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 all through, from the beginning to when my administration came. And probably during that first year of transition, we earned another disclaimer. That means systems were not properly put.
Okay.
Counties had problems with capacity of staff. When we came in, for example, the Department of Finance had so many other shortcomings in human capital. So as we went on to recruit in departments, there's more efficiency in delivery of the work. And when the auditors now came in fact, you can be witness. The senators, when they were interviewing us, they would say, "You have lazy staff," because there is a schedule, but it's not complete. There are some vouchers or some receipts for local revenue collection that some were missing, but the numbers are in the schedule.
Okay.
There's some payments to which they were saying to some askari soldiers like that, but they are not properly done. Then there was some, and I saw it with Waiguru again, that the professional opinion was not signed. So these are basic. They are basic challenges in capacity of the staff.
Okay.
But not actual misuse of resources.
All right. Even as the auditor then raises the red flag, I mean, that even as you say is subject to further substantiation as you appear, you and your team, before the Senate.
Yes.
There's also another concern he raised, that was in April 2019, 596 million dubious spending in your county, 41 million Kenya shillings. That was not validated. You have the fuel issue, no proper explanation was provided for, said Mr. Ouko.
Yes.
And there's also the executive failure to establish an audit committee to oversee financial operations of the county and also support its accounting officers with regard to the responsibilities. I mean, even as you go and defend yourselves, I mean, to come clean, this will be an uphill task, isn't it, with regards to the avalanche of accusations raised by the Auditor General? I
don't think so. Okay. Like, for example, that one that says there was the county or the administration lacks the capacity to set up an audit committee. You know, it's a process. It is not you are there in office and the following day you have put an audit committee. It takes time. So that observation came because when we came in, actually there wasn't. And the same observation has been occurring time again and again and again. But if you go now, you'll find an audit committee. When I was talking to you about issues of capacity, it tells you now, there was no audit committee. It is not about the external auditors to come and observe issues. It was primarily, first of all, for the internal auditors to do it. Now, there was no audit committee. Who does it?
Right.
You get now the point I'm talking about.
Yes,
so there are issues of capacity that were not there before. And there's no way a system can be perfect if the personnel or the equipment that are supposed to handle the system are not there. So those inefficiencies, those gaps were arising from basically that the institutions are not properly built. So the system has lapses.
So you're confident that you will be success?
I'm very confident that now we have systems.
Okay.
Internal, we have systems. We have the committees. We have now the monitoring and evaluation committee that was not there. We have in some departments we just could see about 3-4 people an entire department. Okay. But we have recruited. We have now built capacity. Even in health, as we are talking about COVID-19, we have now 9 doctors. We have recruited clinicians. We have recruited community health workers. We have recruited nurses. So that's why I told you from the word go that counties are trying. There's a lot of effort, a lot of initiatives that have been put in place to be able to deliver to the expectations
All right, Governor, we look forward to a lot, including what the President will be saying when he addresses the nation on Monday.
Yes.
And we thank you for coming on board, expounding on some of the issues, Tana River County, of course, and the general preparedness of the county level across the country. And your time is always appreciated. Thank you so much for gracing us here on NewsCompass.
Thank you.
And thank you to you too. We'll be back next week here on the same program. Bye-bye.